Hi everyone. So today we're going to be talking about extended metaphor, and we're going to be analyzing a poem by Paul Laurence Dunbar and then connecting that back with To Kill a Mockingbird. So at this point you should have read chapter 17 in the book. If you haven't read that much, go back and read that before doing this video or you are not going to be able to do it. You're going to be confused. So make sure you've caught up on the reading, chapter 17, before you watch this video. So first we're going to start with a basic definition. So you've probably heard of metaphor. That's a comparison between two unlike things, and that does not use the words like or as. But extended metaphor might be something you're not as familiar with. Extended metaphor, just a different type of metaphor, and it extends, it continues through several lines in a text or a poem. So it's pretty self-explanatory. If you know what a metaphor is, extended is just qualifying that. It just extends, it continues throughout several lines in a text or a poem. And so just some basic metaphor examples. Her eyes are fireflies. Kisses are the flowers of love in bloom. Scars are the roadmap to the soul. And then looking at extended metaphor, really, you're thinking about this on a big idea scale. So really three things here. What? You're going to identify the extended metaphor. Why? Well, it's really important to know what the author is saying. And so if you can't understand the metaphor, you're going to miss the meaning of the poem or the text. And then when are you going to be doing this? When you're analyzing a text or a poem. And that's what you're going to be doing today. And so an example is one of Emily Dickinson's poems that we're going to look at on the next slide. Hope is the thing with feathers. And her extended metaphor here is hope as this little bird. So hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. And sweetest in the gale is heard, and sore must be the storm that could abash the little bird that kept so many warm. So we're really going to break this down and take it step by step. So first, read the poem or text through once. That's what we just did. Now we're going to go back, read it a second time, and this time ask yourself what two things are being compared. Then you're going to search to see if the metaphor, again that's the two things that are being compared, continues for several lines or throughout the poem or text. If it does, you've got an extended metaphor. And then provide the evidence. So what evidence, what quotes, where's the proof that shows this thing is being compared to this thing and it extends throughout the poem. So we've got the poem here again. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. And sweetest in the gale is heard, and sore must be the storm that could abash the little bird that kept so many warm. So we've read it through a second time now. Ask yourself what two things are being compared. And so here we can see I've got it in green here for us. We've got hope is being compared to something with feathers, something that perches, it sings, it never stops. And then here it even tells us a little bird. So we've got our metaphor here of hope as this bird. Hope is this thing with feathers. Hope is a bird. That's our metaphor here. And we do see that it extends. It's not just in the first line or the second line or the third line. It really extends throughout the entire poem. So that means it's not just a metaphor, but it's an extended metaphor. And so once you figure out what the extended metaphor is, you can kind of start breaking that down to figure out what does the author actually mean by this. And so here we've got, just like hope, birds are not going to let these bad circumstances stop them from singing. Likewise, hope will keep you warm even during hard times. And so whenever you are trying to do this, you really have to find that proof, find that evidence. And so if we go back to the poem, we've got sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. So just like birds seemingly don't stop singing, hope doesn't stop either. And then we've also got down here, oops, sorry, that slide bar keeps popping up, that could abash the little bird that kept so many warm. So hope is like this bird that can keep you warm during a storm or during a hard time in your life. So that's an example of extended metaphor. So hopefully that makes sense. Now we're going to move on to our poem today, We Wear the Mask by Paul Laurence Dunbar, and then we are going to have some questions, and we're going to try to connect this back to To Kill a Mockingbird, specifically to the character of Tom Robinson. So first, I'm going to read through the poem once, then the poem will pause after each stanza and ask you some comprehension questions, and then we'll have a few questions at the end about extended metaphor and theme. We wear the mask that grins and lies. It hides our cheeks and shades our eyes. This debt we pay to human guile. With torn and bleeding hearts we smile, and mouth with myriad subtleties. Why should the world be overwise in counting all our tears and sighs? Nay, let them only see us while we wear the mask. We smile, but O great Christ, our cries to Thee from tortured souls arise. We sing, but oh, the clay is vile beneath our feet and long the mile. But let the world dream otherwise, we wear the mask. Sorry, I had to adjust the screen there a little bit. And so whenever you're reading a poem, it's always a good idea to just read it through all the way one time, and then now we're going to go back and break it up. So I'm going to read stanza by stanza. This video will pause, ask you a few questions, and then we'll start getting into this. We Wear the Mask by Paul Laurence Dunbar. We wear the mask that grins and lies. It hides our cheeks and shades our eyes. This debt we pay to human guile. With torn and bleeding hearts we smile, and mouth the myriad subtleties. And I'm going to pause here, ask you guys a question, just answer it up on your screen, and then we will keep moving. All right, second stanza. Why should the world be overwise in counting all our tears and sighs? Nay, let them only see us while we wear the mask. Then you'll have your second question, answer that. And third stanza. We smile, but O great Christ, our cries to Thee from tortured souls arise. Oh, sorry guys. Third stanza. We smile, but O great Christ, our cries to Thee from tortured souls arise. We sing, but oh, the clay is vile beneath our feet and long the mile. But let the world dream otherwise. We wear the mask. And then you will have your third question pop up, so take a moment to answer it. All right, so now you've answered some basic comprehension questions. Now we're going to go back to this idea of extended metaphor, and again, take it step by step. So we've already read the poem through once, so now go back. We'll read it a second time, well, actually a third time, and we'll ask yourself, what two things are being compared? Is this metaphor an extended one? Does it continue for several lines or throughout the poem? And then look for evidence. So I'm going to just go back, read it through again, and this time pay special attention to what two things are being compared here. We wear the mask that grins and lies. It hides our cheeks and shades our eyes. This debt we pay to human guile. With torn and bleeding hearts we smile, and mouth with myriad subtleties. Why should the world be overwise in counting all our tears and sighs? Nay, let them only see us while we wear the mask. We smile, but O great Christ, our cries to Thee from tortured souls arise. We sing, but oh, the clay is vile beneath our feet and long the mile. But let the world dream otherwise. We wear the mask. I also just want to say a little side note here. I should have said this earlier. This poem is from 1896, so he is not talking about, these masks that we're having to wear during the coronavirus pandemic. So just keep that in mind. This poem is very, very old. It's not talking about a literal mask that we're having to wear here in 2020. So just keep that in mind. All right. So this video is going to pause once again. It's going to ask you to consider this extended metaphor in the poem. So Go back if you need to, read through the poem, find what's being compared, and answer the question here. All right, and lastly, I want to connect this back to To Kill a Mockingbird. So we've now seen Tom, who's been accused of rape. He is going through this court case. We've seen evidence on both sides. We've seen pretty solid evidence that Tom could not have possibly done the crime that he's accused of. And we're going to see the verdict here in a couple days. So what I want you to think about now is, how does Tom, as a black man in a courtroom, wear his own type of mask? How does Tom, as a black man in a courtroom, wear his own type of mask? And so we know that this is set during the Great Depression. We know that Jim Crow laws are in effect. We know that segregation is the law of the land. We know that they are in Macomb, Alabama. And so Tom, showing up as a black man in a courtroom, he is pretty much already presumed to be guilty. So how might he wear his own type of mask in this courtroom? And go back into your book and look and see if you can't remember. But how might he be wearing his own type of mask? So that will be your last question. And then make sure at the end of this you click on submit so that I will get your answers. And let me know if you have any questions.